Hey guys, Dan here with another knife review. Of course, this time I'm taking a look at the Spyderco Caly 3 in carbon fiber. It's a beautiful knife from Seki City, Japan, one of my favorites from Spyderco. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this review, let's talk about what you might use this knife for and form a little context for my critique. I'd start off by saying this would be a great EDC knife, and that would be its primary role in my book. It's got a 3-inch blade, an overall length of 7 inches, and a weight of 3 ounces, so you do the math, that's about perfect for EDC in my book. You might prefer something slightly smaller or larger, but for me, this is a great EDC size. Of course, this makes a great dress knife as well, a gentleman's folder, a special occasion knife. Maybe for some this would be a collectible. I could certainly see the appeal. I've been trying to preserve mine a little bit. It's just a beautiful knife and exquisitely made, so I'd like to keep this one nice. And lastly, this could fill some sort of emergency tactical role. Definitely not a primary use, but you have to keep in mind this is a very strong knife. The lock on it's strong. The edge and the point are incredibly sharp, and the ergonomics are good too. So if it's all you had in your pocket, you could certainly do the job, especially compared to other knives. So let's take a look at the blade here. As you can see, it's a classic Spyderco leaf-shaped design, fully flat ground, very nice, and it's got a special laminated blade. And what that means is basically it's like a sandwich of 3 steels stuck together. On the outside there, as you can see up here, is 420J2, and the core where the edge is ZDP 189, which is a very hard steel, holds an edge extremely well. And the 420J is a bit tougher, and it will help protect this knife from getting scratched up. So it's very cool, and as you can see, it's got that cool effect where the 2 steels kind of are ground together. Nice and unique, especially among Spyderco and their lineup. The edge on this knife was about as sharp as I've ever gotten out of the box. This tip is just wicked. Just cool. It's a cool little aside. That's never really a big deal for me, since I end up sharpening my knives anyways as I use them. But we'll say this was one of the sharpest. The handle is carbon fiber over stainless steel. The liners have been milled out quite meticulously, I might add. And that's how they got this knife right at 3 ounces there, which is kind of cool. One negative, I guess if you were to want to point some negative things out with this knife, is that it is bolted together. As you can see here, these are not screws. These are rivets. Oh, and when I say bolted, I mean riveted together, as in you can't take them apart. So if you were to dunk this in salt water or something like that, the only way you could take these scales off is if you drilled out the rivets, and unless you're a knife maker pretty handy with tools, you're probably not going to do that. So seen as something of a negative. The pivot is still adjustable, which is nice, and the pocket clip is swappable. And this is the Spyderco wire clip, which I love. Just a very discreet and strong clip. It's got great retention, and you can carry this knife around and nobody will know that you got a Spyderco unless they're into knives like you, which I think is cool, especially in, you know, office environments and stuff like that, where you may have to be sensitive to that kind of thing. Not that I'm a very sensitive guy, but you know, you got that option. What else? The ergonomics are excellent. As you can see, it's got that very pronounced thumb ramp and choil. Both have been generously jimped here. Some good sharp jimping. The scales, the carbon fiber scales, are smooth, but that's not really an issue for me, you know, because it's got such great ergonomics to begin with the design. And if your hands are slightly oily or wet, as mine are now from being under the lights of my little makeshift studio here, you're not slipping. This isn't like grabbing onto a bar of soap or anything. There's no texture or any real tactile feedback, but you're not sliding around either. So, for what it's worth. The lock is, of course, a lock back. Very strong. Deployment's accomplished by this nice oversized spider hole. As you can see, this isn't a knife I like to flick open. I imagine you could, but it's a pretty knife, so I have other knives that I like to flick open compulsively, but this just isn't one of them. It's a very strong lock. Very strong. Not going anywhere. So, just beautiful. Everything is very well done. I guess one thing I've noticed in a couple reviews, and I've seen it on my knife too, as you can see, as you open and close the knife, it does develop these small scratches. And, you know, for some that's a deterrent. I would agree, you know, I'd rather not have them there, but not a big deal for me, honestly. And same with the bolted handles here. I mean, yes, it is a negative, but, you know, I wasn't really planning on taking this knife apart anyways. It is something to note. For some, it will mean more than, you know, others. So, okay, guys, really like this knife. At $100, which is pretty much what you can buy this knife for, I think it's just an outstanding deal. Just a beautiful knife. Very well finished, great materials, awesome design, ultimate EDC, gentleman's folder. Would make a great gift if it's like a real special occasion or something. Just nice. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll be back soon with another knife review. Bye-bye.